Good evening and welcome to our Women's Connect service. And as you will know, the theme for tonight is being the village for children, and its focus is really on fostering and adoption. My name is Joyce Stewart. I am one of the leaders of the Region 4 women's team, but I'm also a local leader at my church in Small Heath. And I'm very pleased to have you all here tonight. And I know that when we have these services, we often have people from all over the place. So it's good to have you all here. And I should say, before I go any further, I'm also an adopter. And being an adoptive parent, that's a very important role for me. And obviously, this subject tonight is very passionate for me and very dear to my heart. And I hope you will all enjoy hearing a little bit of my story. I have a son who's now aged 14 years old, and he came to me when he's 3.5 years old. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about him and our story and how we got to where we are today. So hopefully you'll stick with us and you'll hear a bit more about that. And you'll have lots of comments and questions along the way. We have some guests with us who I'll introduce a little bit later on. But first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody, as I said. I'd like to welcome all the regions. We have regions 1 to 6, so that's the national going across the board. We'd like to welcome you all here, our men and our women. And also, I'd like to welcome people who, as we know, people often tune in from overseas. So we get quite a few different types of from all different countries coming in. So it'd be really nice because we're on Zoom, we're on Facebook and so on YouTube. It'd be really good if you could just put an emoji in the comments, or if you could put your flag in there even more and we know where you're watching from. That'd be absolutely fantastic. And so welcome. And also, not to leave out, Minister Joyce Fletcher and Minister Alney Powell, our leaders. We really appreciate you and thank you for all the things and the support that you give to us. And welcome to you tonight, this evening as well. Okay, so we're going to go on with our service, with our session, I should say tonight. Not service tonight, is it? It's definitely a session. So as I said, the topic is Be the Village Where Belonging Begins, and it's a program about fostering and adoption. And I'm going to ask if we can think a little bit about the fact that some of you may know that in October it is Black History Month, so I think everybody will know that. But how many of you actually know that it's also National Adoption Week? So we have a week within October every year where we celebrate adoption and we try to recruit adopters and so on. And there's also Fostering Week, but that comes later. Or earlier in the year, I should say. So some of you may not know that, so I'm just putting that out there tonight. So obviously last month we focused on Black History Month and we had a very important topic then. So this month we've gone on to look at adoption and what that means to us. So we're going to focus on that tonight. We're going to talk about what fostering adoption means within the Black community in particular, and what some of the obstacles, barriers might be, what's the system about. So we've got people here who, as well as being adopter and foster carer, we've also got professionals as part of the meeting tonight. So I'd like to introduce our guests. So you've heard quite a bit about me, so you're getting to know a bit about me, so that's enough. I'd like to hand over now to Grace Gomez, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, I am Grace Gomez and I am the Adopter Diversity Engagement Officer and I work for PAC Charity, and PAC stands for Parents and Children Together. We are a voluntary adoption agency. We have offices across the southeast and we have been rated outstanding with Ofsted consecutively 3 times. So thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here this evening.
Okay, and we'd like to hand over now to Adore.
My name is Adore Young. I'm joining you from Region 2. I'm a author and I'm also the founder of Christian Authors and Poets UK. That is a community that brings people together, writers and poets, so they can use their gifts to inspire, encourage and uplift others. My connection to tonight's conversation is that I've spent the past 20 years working with children and families across a range of settings. I'm currently a senior social worker in Children's Social Services. I work in a children in care team where I support children who are living in foster care. and I also help foster carers navigate the challenges and the joys of providing a safe and stable home for children. So over the years, I've seen firsthand the resilience of children, the dedication of the carers, and the impact that the right support can make. That's why I'm passionate about the topic we're discussing tonight, because I believe that every child deserves to feel safe, valued, and connected, and every family deserves the support to make that possible. So it's a privilege to be part of this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to discussing further. I'd like now to hand over to Shez.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shez Christopher, and I'm speaking from Region 1, London, although I live in Hertfordshire. I'm coming tonight to join you as one of the women's leaders for the region, but also as a parent and as a foster parent for 19 years. I've had a variety of children bless me with their presence, and I hope that I've been able to sow into their life. Sometimes you see them again when they leave. Sometimes you don't. But the important thing for me in relation to this evening is touching the lives of children in need, and why it's important for us as Christians to be a part of touching the lives of children in the society that need help in one way or another. And I hand over to my sister.
Thank you very much, Shez. So as you've met our guests, and we're really thankful for having such people who are passionate about the topic, and we look forward to hearing more from them later on. Let's try and get into the mind of a child a little bit now. So we're just going to have a short video now, and this video is called Sam's Story, and it is looking at a little bit of the child's world, a child that's in foster care.
Sam. Like many young people, I enjoy playing games, hanging out, listening to music, watching TV. But I have a different background to most other people my age. I'm in care, which means I'm cared for by people who are not members of my birth family. There are lots of reasons why a young person like me can end up in care. Here are a few examples.
My parents had addiction problems with drugs and alcohol and couldn't look after me properly.
I don't like my family and I chose to go into care.
My parents are in a different country and I'm not allowed to live with them.
My behaviour problems meant I didn't have a good relationship with my parents.
My parents are in prison.
My parents died and I have no other family to look after me. There's always a reason behind someone being in care. If it's decided that it's the best thing for you, you go to live with someone who can look after you properly in a happy and safe home. It might be for a little while, it might be for a long time. It just depends on your needs. Sometimes people don't see me as normal and make a big issue out of me being in care. They ask silly questions like, is it like Tracy Beaker? Tracy Beaker is a TV show set in a children's home, and not everything you see on there happens in real life. Most children will go into foster care like me, but there are other types of care too, like adoption and kinship care. Sometimes people can say things like, you don't have a real family, no one loves you, you're just trouble, what's wrong with you, or your parents dead, your mum didn't love you, you're different, not like us. This makes me sad. It's horrible to hear these things from people who don't know me. I keep thinking to myself, I wish they knew what it was really like. In reality, I have a home, a mum, a dad, a brother, a pet dog. They are my real family who love me. I go to school, I have friends, and when I grow up, I want to be successful and have a good life for my own family. Just because I'm in care doesn't mean I can't fulfil my dreams. It can be a roller coaster of emotions being in care, but it's mostly a really good thing. I love my family and I wouldn't be the person I am today without them. I hope my story has helped you understand a little bit more about being in care. Thanks for watching. Bye.
So that's just a taster, really, of just to give us an idea of what it might be like for a child and some of the reasons why they might be in care in the first place and what might be going through their mind and some of the experiences they might have, and also assumptions that society might make about them or their peers may well make about them. So we're going to go on to our discussion now, and I'd like to encourage people who are watching. So if you're on any of the platforms, please feel free to put comments in, and we'll be looking at some of those comments at the end, and as many as we can get through, we will be mentioning them later on. But just engage with us and just kind of any questions you've got and so on. We'd really be interested in hearing them and getting some feedback from you on this topic. So really, I'm going to kick off with the first question, and I'm just going to kind of point out to Shez at this moment, actually, as a foster carer. I'm just wondering, Shez, what was it that kind of prompted you to think, yeah, I'd like to foster, I'd like to do something about this, I'd like to step into fostering?
I think growing up in the Caribbean community, there's 5 siblings, and my parents from the Caribbean, where they're used to taking in each other's children just as is necessary. So I'd often come home from school and find somebody else in my bedroom, and I'd say to my sister, "Who's that?" And my dad would say, "Oh, this person will be staying with us for the next 2 years." And it would be as simple as that. There was always somebody's child in our home. And my parents adopted an ethos that it does take a village to raise a child. So if one of their friends from up north or up south or wherever was having a challenge with their children, they'd say, "We're sending you to Mr. and Mrs. Christopher in London." And whether we as children understood that or accepted that, our bedroom as girls became the bedroom and the home to many strange girls passing through. And I had many sisters as a result of that. Some I saw again, some I didn't. But I grew up thinking, actually, that's quite a good thing to do, just to take people's children in. Although they were not officially foster parents, they did it as a community. Then having one son myself, I thought, it's going to be good if I grow him up with other people's children who need. So he can see what it's like to be part of a family. And I can also give to other children, male and female, a family ethos. And as from a Christian point of view, the Bible talks about feeding those, clothing those, taking in those. So I put it all under one umbrella from my upbringing.
Yeah, and that's fantastic actually to hear that. And it sounds like there's like generations there. It's not just yourself, it goes back generations to your parents and the role modeling of what you saw them do actually. And that's fantastic to hear that. Yeah, I really like that. I think for me, becoming an adopter, and why did I decide to go into that? There was no kind of example around me, but I'd always wanted to be a parent. It was really simple as that. And thinking, what can I do? I'm not married, but I want to be a parent, and can I do this? But I think I can. I think I can provide something for a child. I think I've got something to give. And I've got energy. At that time I had a lot more. I've got the time. I was on my own. And my parents, well, my mum was fit and well, my father had already passed. I just thought, yeah, I could do something. I could become a parent, and this is a different way of doing it. And I worked in that area at the time. It kind of led from there and became a reality for me. But I think just listening to the different kind of way we both ended up looking after children that aren't our own, that we haven't given birth to, not our biological children, as it is officially said, is interesting. 2 different ways of coming in, but we're both in there doing this. And I'm just kind of leading on from there. What helped you actually make this first step and go into, contact a fostering agency and actually do something practical about it?
I think it was also from the perspective of a lawyer working in many local authorities. You see the vast number of children passing through the care system, and you get to visualize how much they need someone to share love, to sow into them, to tell them that they're important. And I used to think, as a single mother, what would happen to my child if something happened to me? who would take my son in and who would share love with him, sow into him, teach him, encourage him and pray for him. And having my son, I thought, I've got to do this. I've seen my parents do it. So I just contacted the local authorities and said I'd like to be a foster carer, explain why. And of course, they do put you through the whole motion of becoming a foster carer is quite vigorous and intrusive, but it's worth every penny when you're sitting there combing the hair of one of these little girls and they've had nobody else to comb their hair, talking to one of these little boys, and they look into your eyes and you can see that they needed to have somebody house them, guide them, teach them. And I shouldn't say little, because I got the older ones, actually, as opposed to the little babies. The ones perhaps that people would find more challenging, in line with my son's age. So I always had the older children from 14, 15, 16 upwards. But yeah, I decided just to make the first move into contact social services and be a help where I could.
And just as you were speaking, I was just wondering, because you talk about the vigorous process and rigorous process, really. And were there ever times during that rigorous process where you thought, "Oh, why did I do this?" and sort of thing? Did you ever think like that? Was there ever that moments?
I did actually. When I realised the depth of the inquiries that they'd have to make into my own personal life, I thought, wow, this is a lot. But then, like I said, from a lawyer point of view, when you see why they have to go into every aspect of your life, because not everybody who offers a white olive branch offers it for the right reason. And some children end up in care in homes of foster parents and are actually more damaged if their past wasn't looked into correctly. The only other time I felt weary or confused about my journey as a foster parent is when I realized, as a woman and as a Christian woman, the ideals were very different to the fostering system on what we had to offer, our boundaries, what we could do, what we couldn't do. When they would say, perhaps, although this is your child, it's not really your child, so you can't discipline them. You really can't. Some of the older children would be they'd like to have a good debate, put it that way. And with my own child, you have a platform of guiding him with discipline. But with the older children coming from the social services, they'd let you know that actually, we don't want you to discipline them that way. We don't want you to talk to them that way. Let them have the remit. They've come from an environment of no boundaries, so try not to give them too many boundaries. And of course, that was a conflict with me wanting to be the best adult, the best parent out there. And I thought, allow us to parent them with godly wisdom and godly love, as opposed to with the book boundaries.
Yeah, and that's wonderful, isn't it? Because I was thinking that's who you are. You bring you, and it's so important that you bring you into fostering, and that child gets you as part of that experience as well. Yeah, so that's wonderful. Thank you, Shez. Really appreciate those comments. And I'm going to move on now. And I don't know if any of our other guests want to add anything. Just thinking about what Shez has just said in terms of the expectations, in terms of boundaries and so on, and being a Christian and being yourself as you parent this child, as you foster parent or adoptive parent this child. Any thoughts? Anybody want to say anything on that? Either Dee or, Adore or Grace? I'd like to make a comment.
I just think it's a remarkable thing to do. It was always something that was in my heart, but I never had a spare room. All my life, I've just had this desire to be a foster carer, just to take a child in and to love and to nurture. But it wasn't to be, I'm afraid, but it was also a desire of my heart. I think it's just an incredible thing to do. And you just speak so calmly and confidently. You must be an amazing foster mum. Wow, sounds really good.
Okay, thank you, Grace. We're going to move on to some questions now that are going to involve all of us and are really around understanding children and their needs. So there's some specific questions that we've got, and we're going to use these as leaders really and go from there. Okay, so just asking all the panel really, what are some of the common misconceptions people have about children coming into care? Can I ask Dee to take that one, please?
Okay, so one of the biggest that I found, one of the biggest misconceptions is that children come into care because it's something that they have done. And that simply is not true. Children enter care because they haven't been kept safe at home. Usually it's due to issues like neglect or domestic abuse, parental mental health struggles, substance abuse, or circumstances which are completely out of their control. Another misconception is that children in care are troubled or hard to manage. And in reality, they are children who they have experienced adverse childhood experiences, they have experienced trauma, instability, and loss. And their behaviors often reflect their experiences, but not their character. And with the right support, these children do thrive. With the right, that love and care of the foster carers, they definitely they have a chance to heal and thrive. People also sometimes assume that children in care that they don't miss or love their birth families. And again, that is not so, because they do. Children can hold love, confusion, hurt, and loyalty all at the same time. And carers have to hold space for all of that. And I think a final point is I think that some children in care are looking for, people are misconstrued thinking that children are looking for a perfect family. They're not. They're simply looking for safety. They're looking for consistency and adults who will not give up on them. I think that's a very important point. When we challenge these misconceptions, we make fostering and adoption feel more accessible, especially at a time when we're facing a national shortage of carers and rising complexity in the children's needs.
Yes, there is a real. I mean, I just listening to something yesterday about national shortage, and that I think it's like the fourth year running or something, that the number of fostering households has decreased. So it's year on year now, and it's getting quite concerning that people aren't coming forward for those kind of misconceptions are part of that. So I think yes, quite
Yes.
right to hear that. Yeah. So a bit concerning time, really. Just wonder if you've got any thoughts to add on that, Shez, in terms of what people might say to you, why they think you've got care of children, why they've come into your care.
I think, as was already said, the conception people have about taking children into your home is numerous, and some of them are sad. Oh, well, you don't know what spirits they're going to bring into your home. I thought, pardon? When you're on the bus, when you're on the train, when you interact with people, everybody has different, what I want to call personalities in any event. So that's one of the misconceptions. They say, oh, well, as a Christian home, you're bringing into your house with your own children who have perhaps got negative energy, negative spirits from their family lineage. I thought that won't work for me, because we have to know, number one, who the God is that we serve. Number two, we have to know what his commandments is to us. And number three, as you said, these are little lives with characteristics. And without being able to guide these little characteristics to develop to who they are, how will they know the love of God? How will they know who they are? How will they have a hope? And if I don't do it as a Christian mother, the society we live in will then open up the doors for anybody to do it. And when I say anybody, I mean, in the widest possible terms, anybody, because there is a shortage. And when I go to those foster carer meetings and I'm dressed as a female and I see other foster carers who are dressed as a female but not biologically a female, or vice versa, I think, God, where are my sisters and my brothers to help? Even if these children are troubled, even if they do have an angry disposition, it's because they've been hurt, they've been let down, they're afraid. But surely the God in us must be able to reach out and help change them, touch them, soothe them, and show them that they are as beautiful as you and I with love and care. So that's the main misconception, is what kind of characters are you allowing into your home? Are they going to interrupt the flow, the harmony? Your children are going to be impacted by these. Yeah, so that's the main one.
And I'm just wondering, Grace, because you take children, thank you, Shez, to say, you take children from coming into care and then try to find homes, what we'd call forever homes. You know, you try to take them into those permanent homes. Do you find there's a lot of misconceptions around in your work?
Yeah, so obviously the children who are placed for adoption, they're in the care of foster carers, and it's been decided that adoption is the route for those children. So then what we as PAT do, then we recruit people who want to adopt. So part of my job is going out and about in the community, different events, and just talking about adoption. A lot of people think that children are troubled, as you say, and that, like you said, who are you bringing into your home? What if you don't like them? How can you send them back? And it's always, people seem to come up with all the negative things about the children and not perhaps understanding. I love what you ladies have said. I really need to go back and listen to that again, understanding where the children have come from, that they've been removed from their birth family because of abuse and neglect of some sort. So they've already had a really tricky start in their little life. And so if they can go into a permanent home, then obviously it's much better for them. So I think that's what I hear, a lot of misconceptions about the types of children. You know, what if you don't get on? What if the adoption breaks down? But thankfully, what I do, I see the families at the other end, and it can be, it is a really lovely thing when you see the children in their families. It's just incredible. And all these things you hear, but it's difficult because it has like a negative press, isn't it? Adoption and fostering, and you hear a lot of horror stories, but I get to hear all the good ones. It's not all bad, is it? It's very rewarding, much needed. Yeah.
Yes, and it is. And I was thinking about, just to add to that as well, thank you for your responses. I'm just thinking about the misconceptions when I said I wanted to adopt, and people were saying, why? You know, why? You've got a nice life. Why do you want to do it? So it's the negative immediately was there, you know, that it was going to have a negative impact on my whole life now, from now on. My life was ending or something like that. And I was thinking, oh, my life just going to be beginning because I'm going to become a parent. And I was excited, but not everybody was. Some were excited, but some were like, you know, don't do it sort of thing. You're going to destroy your life. So it's interesting what kind of myths and misconceptions are still out there. So, okay, so we'll move on to something a bit more positive here. And that is sort of, what sorts of resilience have you seen in children? What sorts of ways have you seen resilience in the children that you care for, whether professionally or within your home? And what surprised you about the children that, you know, you come into contact with? I'm going to ask Grace to answer that one first.
I just have to speak from the point of view of the parents, because once the children are placed in homes, a lot of them help us by speaking at the information events, and you have to be resilient. I think quite often people think, like you said, in the process was quite intrusive, and you think, I've had this and that in my past, I'm no good, but actually that makes you resilient. It shows that you can cope with these things. So things that people think are weaknesses, we actually see them as a strength. And it's just incredible, because I remember one of our parents were talking about when the child was first placed, and the child was very unsettled, and how they just spent night after night just sitting outside the bedroom door until finally that child settled. And that just really touched my heart, to have those skills, to know, you know, to have had that compassion to sit outside that child's door waiting for it to go to sleep. And something else that really touched me was there was a couple who had some children placed with them, and they were going on holiday. And he said that, you know, they were all excited about the holiday. They got the suitcases out, and the children started getting really worried. And I thought, well, that's odd. Why would they be worried about that? And he said for their boys, the sign of the suitcase meant they were moving again. And I'll never forget that. I thought, oh my gosh, who would think that a suitcase would trigger that in a child? And so he had to reassure them, you're not moving, you're here forever, we love you, you're staying here. And so what he said was, he did was they got the suitcase and they mixed up all their clothes. They said, we're not leaving you, look, daddy's clothes are in here, so when you get there, we're not sending you anywhere, we're staying together. So it's just, those little stories really touched me. And I think, yeah, you have to be resilient. But yeah, things that people see in their own lives as being negatives are actually strengths, because you do need resilience, don't you? Whether you're an adoptive parent, foster parent, or a birth parent.
Okay, thanks, Grace. And yeah, that suitcase one, as soon as you said that, I knew where that was going. And it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Does anybody else want to come in on resilience in children or things that surprised you? If you can just kind of give me a little indicator.
In relation to resilience of the children, from that perspective, a lot of the young people that I take in have come in as refugees. So when I think about their resilience, they've come from war-torn countries. They have left their mother and father. They have crossed through the deserts, crossed through the wilderness, crossed through Africa in ships and boats, hidden, had to be smuggled, had to cross the channel, knowing the fear that they may never see their parents again, knowing that they may not arrive. But they had a determination, if I could just touch, so to speak, if I could just reach, then somebody, somewhere, the British government, is going to help me. They also know, because they share the message with each other, of when you get there, what you have to do, what you have to say. So they've come with a resilient mind as to, if I say this, if I show this front, somebody will help me. And I think it takes a resilience to deliberately get up and say, I'm going to run for my life. I'm going to flee for my life. I'm going to risk being placed in a boat, in the back of a lorry, in cars with strangers, to try and get to the UK, just to have a hope, just to know that somebody might take me in, the government, and place me with somebody like yourselves who will care and give me a better life. And the resilience from our part as foster parents, patience is a virtue, because they've come from different environments, different experiences, different expectations, language barriers, afraid now that they're here, but they have a hope. And the expectations that we have of them has to be put aside, and patiently watch them grow, patiently try and understand them. When they resist our culture, our ways of doing things, patience, 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 resilience.
Yeah, some real nuggets coming out in all these responses. Yeah, and some real learning. Thank you for the responses. Okay, we're going to move on. Still looking at understanding children and their needs. And how do you help a child navigate questions about their identity, for example, their belongings or their life story? And I'm going to pose that one to Dee. How do you help children with their identity and their life story?
Okay, so it's about building a relationship with the children in doing direct work. So I start by giving children a safe, calm space where their questions can be explored gently and at their own pace, age appropriately. Children in care, they often carry big, complicated feelings about who they are, where they belong, and why things in their life have changed. So I try to meet those questions with honesty and empathy, so that the children don't feel overwhelmed. I'll stress honesty, because I think that basically never lie to a child, tell the child exactly what is happening in an age-appropriate manner from day one, their understanding. Their story is nothing to be ashamed of. It's something for them to understand piece by piece with support. Identity is more than the events that brought them into care. It includes their culture, their heritage, their personality, their likes and dislikes, their strengths, and also the people that love them in the present, the foster carers. A lot of children, they still have contact. They have contact with their parents, their family, and all of that helps to rebuild their sense of belonging. And just yesterday on the news, actually it wasn't yesterday, it was on Thursday, sorry, on the news, they were discussing that there are 200 per year, 200 adopted placements that are breaking down, and the children are now coming back into care. So we truly are at a crisis level. We're desperate for foster carers, and especially within our community as well. There is a shortage, and it's vital that adults or carers that come forward, to feel confident and equipped to support these children. It's not just the practical needs, but it's also the emotional and identity-based needs that are important. So I think basically we make space for the children, for their questions with direct work, discussions and so forth. And that gives the children a permission to grow.
Okay, so there's a lot around building relationships really and connecting with the child, and that's kind of the base that you use for that. Does anybody else want to make a comment on that before we move on? Okay, on that one? Yeah.
What I would do, I would ask my son, who is a part of the agreement to take in children, I'd say we need to have certain code words between us when I need your help, when I need you to step in with questions with the children. So if we're at the dining table, remember I've got the older children. So when it comes on to how they feel about themselves, they may ask a question or I may bring something up. And I'd say to my son, so what chapter are you reading in that book now? Now he would know that that is our buzzword for him to interject and to partake. One, because he's a young person himself. Two, because young people relate to young people. So where you have a young child in your house, come into agreement, share with your child certain buzzwords that they can interject to help support when questions might be best seen coming to help answer from them. So when I say that to my son, so what chapter are you reading now? And sometimes he'd play shy and only say a few things. And I say, but I don't understand. What else did that chapter say? Which means I need more from you in this conversation. I need you to strengthen this young person as to their role, as to who they are. When it came on to the girls, I think I'm very much a girly girl. So I'd have no qualms in talking to the girls that pass through me about the feminine aspects, the beauty of being a female, the joy of being a young girl and a woman, the boundaries that they should set for themselves, for self-respect, what to do if they're approached by another female who wants to be that way with them or even another male. Again, I'd use my son to come in to help me. But I found being real, as you said, with the young people, and it never meant diluting my values. It never meant compromising who I am. It just depends on how you approach things, the way you say things, the way you use your family, your children, to strengthen and support the identity of a child in any respect. They may be Muslim and they've come into a Christian home and they want to understand, well, why do you? Why don't you? Why do you? I'd have no qualm saying, come with me. Let me show you. Or I said, let me go with you to the local mosque and see what you do. And let's discuss it. I'd have no qualms with my son bringing it in from. So really, it's just about bringing them into where you are and not being afraid to, but not overwhelmingly pushing anything on them, but little by little, you can get there.
Okay, thank you, Shez. Thank you, Dee. Grace, do you want to say anything about in terms of how you might talk to adopters about culture and identity?
Well, when they're going through before the children are placed in, a lot of work is done with them for the social workers and their life story work. It's nothing that's hidden. I think years ago, adoption was very, very cloak and dagger. And I've heard stories about people who were adults and they didn't know they were adopted. I was talking to somebody who was in his mid-20s and he didn't know he was mixed heritage. He thought he was white because he was in a white family. He didn't know until he was an adult that actually that's not who you are. It was kept hidden from him. I mean, we don't do that anymore. Right from the beginning, the children have like a life story book and it's all age dependent. So the adoptive family, they work with the children to keep that alive and it's very much encouraged. So it's not hidden away. It's done very gently at the child's own pace. So it's really important. I think we've realised now that you can't take away child's identity and culture and just pretend they're not adopted. It doesn't work like that anymore. So it's very important to support that person, that they know who they are. They know as much as they can about their birth family. I'm just thinking of some of our doctors pre-placement. They weren't sure whether they should meet birth family or not because it's like can be a bit tricky, but he went along. And he said he was so glad that he did because as his sons have got older and they started asking questions, he could say, well, actually, I did meet your birth mum. And then he can have a different kind of conversation. So I think it's good that it's not hidden away and it is very open and the children know where they come from because you can't hide their identity and their heritage and their culture. It has to be supported.
Agreed. Thank you for that. And my own experience also has been that obviously my son was 3.5, so we knew that he'd been to a foster family before, and then he came to me. He was 3 months when he went to his foster family and stayed there until he was adopted. Thankfully for him, he wasn't moved about. But he has a very good life story book, really excellent, really pleased with it. And he got it a bit after he came to me, which was a bit late in a way, but it was so good that we've been able to use it really. So it's really helpful for children to know they do have an identity and their identity is valid as well, because he's part of our family, but he has another family that he may well want to meet, and he knows they're there and that they did love him, and he knows some of the story. They weren't able to care for him, but he knows why. And I think those things are really important about him, for him, identity. So thank you for those comments too. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to move on a little bit now to another kind of area, really, and we're looking at caring, practice, and family life. So some sort of kind of practical things that happen when we're fostering and adopting. So really, I'm going to come to you, Shez. You're going to be the first one anyway. Well, what's been one of the toughest parts of your journey as a carer? The toughest bits, and how did you navigate them? What was overwhelming? And what would you say to somebody who's thinking, I'd like to foster, but not too sure? That's a lot there, but yeah.
Okay, I'll do it in this order. One of the toughest parts for me is that you have your own child or children and all the complexities that go with bringing up your own child, from a young baby to a teenager, to them going through puberty, for them, wanting to challenge you and test boundaries. And then you have the children that you bring in as well. And in addition to that, I'm a full-time lawyer and working in the church and caring for my parents where I can. And sometimes I might just feel tired. I might just feel worn. I might just feel like I want to throw in the towel, because dealing with your own child sometimes can be enough when they decide to Maybe they're going through things themselves. But so that can be quite tough. And people think, well, why do you still do it? You've been doing it for years. Why don't you just stop? And it would be easy to just stop, being honest. But then the good thing is that I have some people who are very supportive around me. When you go into fostering, they look at who is your support network. And part of my support network was my parents. But now they're much older. So their help is limited. And a lot of my friends who were my support network have all grown and moved in one direction or another. So your own support network can become smaller, and yet you're left with overwhelming feelings of just your own humanity as a woman, the things you go through, but still you have to nurture your children that you bring in as well as your biological children. So sometimes you can feel overwhelmed, but for me, I have an excellent social worker. She's not a social worker who signs off at 5 o'clock, like I have seen some. They'll say, well, I've signed off. Can you call the out of hours? You think, say what? Well, I don't get to sign off. But the social worker I have, she's 24/7. She's 7 days a week. And I think she's an absolute blessing that if I'm having a struggle with one of my girls and it's a Saturday and it's 5 o'clock, I can reach out to her and she will respond. Whereas other social workers the line will go until Monday, 8:45 in the morning. So it's having people around you who you can call on when you yourself feel, I need extra help because this child is going through a meltdown, they're going berserk, you're not sure what to do because it's what you're going through in your life, as well as dealing with the children. Support network is really, really, really important for me. What was the other part? Because the question was quite loaded, so I've dealt with that part.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. Let me break it down again. What was one of the toughest parts of your journey as a carer? How did you navigate those parts when it felt heavy or overwhelming, which I think you've covered? And what would you wish every new or prospective foster carer to know before starting?
And again, I think so. The other point I want to mention, a challenge was when I had a child who was really challenging, who was challenging in your face, kind of challenging, who was challenging that would want to physically put hands on you, challenging. Now, from the Caribbean, we know that if our children, birth children, ever dare to try and eggs up or, face you in your face, you know that from the lineage that we come from, that might not just work or go down too well for them. I say that with a smile. But when you have the government's children from afar, from foreign, and they want to try and assert and almost want to put hands on you, you have to have such restraint. So much restraint you think, I can't do this no more. But by God's grace, because you know that if you ever, even if you just raise your voice to one of these children, like you would your normal child, it can go against you professionally. It can go against you as a foster carer. So sometimes I have a brother in the church, I just call and say, what are you doing? Can you come round? And he lives about just a mile away. I said, I need some help. I need some help because right now I might lose it. If you don't come, if someone don't come, I might do something that I will later regret. So it's good to be able to call on somebody. But what would I say to fellow persons who are interested in fostering? I'd say to every male and female out there who want to be a parent, and for whatever reason, you're unable to be a parent. This is a blessing from God for you to be able to parent somebody, to sow into them, to nurture them. Don't worry about what society says. There is help. There is going to be help for you along your journey. They're going to educate you every other week. You got to go on a course. I'm just saying. They keep you up to date with legislation. They keep you up to date with dealing with children with different issues. They, just the mind of a child, the character of the child, the needs of a child. Information is going to be thrown at you so much that you're going to find help. But I would urge as many Christian people as possible to be bold enough to take in a child. I heard what was said about not having an extra room. There used to be a theory that if you have one child and you want another child, you have to have two separate rooms. According to the region you live in, That's not the case. Sometimes you can have 2 foster children in one room. But if you do have a spare room, just the way God loves you, just the way your parents nurtured you, I urge you. You heard the statistics. There is a shortage of adults to nurture the children. And before the adversary, the enemy, gets hold of the children and makes them feel that they're worthwhile and sends them into gangs, oh, the gang would love you. Send them into drugs. Grab somebody and help them on their journey. It's worthwhile. You don't have to worry about finances, they will help. Do it, do it, do it. Don't delay, do it. That's my advice.
Okay, thank you, Shez. And I think I like the fact you're keeping it real, because it can be difficult, but it's also got a lot of rewards. The difficulty being that you do need the support because you're human and children push your buttons. But with your biological children, you have a way of managing that, which you can't actually put into action with children that you've brought into your family. I'll put it like that. And I can second that. And children certainly know their rights as well. They're quite
Absolutely.
quick to pick up on those.
Yes, they are.
And even though my son is legally mine, he's also has people involved in his life that a biological child wouldn't. So we still have a post-adoption social worker who he gets on very well with and thinks a lot of. And there are other various people that are involved in his life, a mentor and so on, who support me. And my support network, I sometimes think about the support network I had when I started, and it's changed a lot. I've got different people in there that I wouldn't have expected. And one of the people that's in there is my neighbour. She's an older lady, but she has gone through so much with us and supported us and never complained in a negative way, only in helpful ways. So if she sees something's going on, there's a lot of noise or something like that, some people around saying, "Oh, what's going on?" So not at all. It's kind of like, "Is everything okay? What can I do to help? Can I sit with him for a bit? What do you need?" And I would not have expected that. So sometimes you can get unexpected support that's not part of your original support groups. I think it's all very interesting, actually. As long as you've got people, I think one of the hardest things for me as an adopter has been tiredness, physically and emotionally, because of children's trauma and taking on their trauma sometimes, what they call the secondary trauma, however you want to term it. So I think those things are important for people to recognise before they adopt or foster. But I also know the pleasure and the joy. I haven't given up on him. He is still here. I love him to bits. I can't imagine life without him. I can't sometimes remember life before he came. So I've still got those positive messages, but I think it is good to keep it real and let people see both sides of it. So enough of me there. So now I'm going to just ask one more question, then we're going to ask Grace to present to us. Really, I mean, because we're kind of going in that direction. How do you think the faith and the church can help? Is there anything that anybody would like to say? If you just indicate you want to speak, so I know who's kind of coming forward. Yeah, Dee, would you like to say something on that one?
Yeah, so churches, they have a powerful opportunity to be more than just a place of worship. That they can be the village, a stabilizing community for all children in care and the families who look after them. And being the village, it means more than just occasional acts of kindness and building consistent, it's intentional support around carers. So why I say that, so in society, children in care are often given priority in schools, so they would be accepted into schools, they get first places in schools and so forth. And that's because it's recognized that they need stability and understanding. And I believe that the church can mirror that same level of intentional care, creating a culture where the needs of foster children are prioritized. Not to single them out, but just by making sure that the carers know that they can come to church for real practical help. Prayer, as we know as a community that prayer is our resilience. We know that prayer plays a vital role, and supporting families through prayer, practical love, creating our village that sustains them through the hardest moments, because it is very difficult. I haven't fostered a child personally, but I work with foster carers, and I have got the greatest respect and admiration for foster carers. It's a very difficult, it is a 24-hour job. So I think that support is really important. I think that if we as a church, if we commit to showing up consistently, to being present, to prioritizing the foster families, foster carers, and by offering the spiritual and practical support, I think then foster carers will feel within the village, they will become stronger, a stronger community with the children.
Okay, thank you. And I think I don't know if anybody else wants to make a quick comment on that.
I think that often churches have speakers in on various subjects to do with our spiritual journey, getting to heaven, so to speak. I don't think I have seen in my local church, it might have happened in others, speakers coming in, encouraging the congregation or enlightening the congregation or making them aware of the need, the foster carers, the process, and the benefits spiritually to these children. I think sometimes we can be very heavenly minded, but we're here on earth to be earthly good too. And I think it would be good if on National Fostering Day, National Adoption Day, if perhaps those professionals could encourage the churches, can you allow speakers to come into your church on these days and just share with the flock the statistics of children out there that need a home, and perhaps list out some of the qualities or qualifications that you're looking for and how the church can join and take in and sponsor and be a part of. I think that would help. Village.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I would agree with that, all those comments as well. Because it is tonight about being practical. What can the church do? And I think sometimes it's left to the adopter or the foster care or somebody who works in that field to feel they've got to do it themselves. But we can bring people in to do that on our behalf, who also have that passion as well. So yeah, it's not all our responsibility. But Grace, yeah, come on here.
So just to what you're saying, that's part of my role with Impact, and that's partly why I was recruited. It was fantastic. I've been there 7 years. Like, they realised that Black children were left in the care system longer, and that they needed to actually do something to attract more Black and mixed heritage people. So job description was join up, and I got a job. And I'm really proud to be that person. So I go out into the community. That's how I come to be here tonight. I actually travelled to Milton Keynes to the Gospel Festival there to talk about adoption. I go into churches and different events, and we should be doing more. And I always get a really positive response, and people have lots of questions. So, you know, I'm happy to say, I'm proud to say that Pat realised that that's something that's desperately needed, and that is a part of my job. And if there are any other churches in the district, I'd be happy to come and present, not just on National Adoption Week, but any time then I can offer that to the different churches.
Yeah, well, that's very timely. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Grace. And I'm sure there'll be people that will be taking you up on that as we speak. So it's very appropriate that we're going to go into your presentation now. So you'll be giving details, contact details there as well. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Grace.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm from PACT, as I said, and that stands for Parents and Children Together. And this is a presentation I take into churches. So if I could have the next slide, please. So, Parents and Children Together was established in 1911 by the Bishop of Oxford as a social welfare arm of the Anglican Diocese of Oxford. We currently support children, families and women. We have something called Alana House, which is a community project, and we support over 300 women with a range of complex needs. We also run Bounce Back for Kids, which is a program supporting children and families who have experienced domestic abuse. And of course, we offer our outstanding adoption and adoption support. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just some facts about us. We found loving permanent homes for 84 children in 2024-25. And in the same year, 25% of the placements were with families where at least one person was from a Black or minority ethnic background. And in the same year, 59% of those placements were with families with faith. And we support families throughout the adoption process and beyond. So we talked about the children who are waiting, and there are a lot of children at the moment. We haven't got enough adopters for the children in care. And so currently we've got children of all ages, including children over 3. And it's funny how people think children over 3 are old, but that's still so young to me. So they're single children and also children of sibling groups. We have sibling groups of 2 and 3. We have children from a variety of ethnic, cultural and religious backgrounds because, you know, that's the world that we live in. So we need to place children in backgrounds and religious backgrounds that can match theirs. We have children who've experienced neglectful parenting, as we mentioned earlier. So that can be physical abuse, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. We have children with additional needs. They can be physical, learning, and emotional. So all the children who are waiting for an adoptive family will have suffered loss and separation, as we said, and trauma in their young lives. So here are some statistics. At the moment, Black children are 7% more likely to be looked after in care, and then 2% less likely to be adopted. So we can see from the statistics that they're overrepresented in the care system. So they make up 5% of the children in care, but 7% of the children in England, 7% of all the children. So you can see there's a disproportionate representation of those children. And then once they're in care, then they wait longer for a permanent family. Black African children experience 247 days longer in the adoption process. That's approximately 8 months than white British children. Black Caribbean children wait 238 days longer. That's over 7.5 months more than white British children. Black Caribbean children were 20 times more likely to be in care than white British children. And on average, they wait 6 months longer to be adopted. So who can adopt? Part of my job is going out into the community and dispelling some myths about adoption. And quite often I hear the same thing. It's a tough process. It's really difficult and it's really long. They're too old. They're too young. But actually here are the general rules. You need to be over 21. You have to live in the UK. Obviously, you must not have a criminal record for specific offences. You must be able to provide a spare room for the child. And PAT, we pride ourselves in being a fully inclusive agency. Single people or couples can adopt. In 24 to 25, 14% of PAT adopters were single and supported by PAT. And last year, 34% of those identified as LGBT+. So you can have children or not. If you have birth children, current recommendation is that the youngest child in the family is 7 years old, and younger if the prospective adopters are considering children with a higher level of uncertainty. You can be from any ethnic, religious and cultural background. So last year, 18 children found a loving home with families where at least one parent was from a Black or minority background. If you're living with a disability or a mental health condition, that's something I get asked about a lot. And whether you own your own home or rent, you can adopt. This is something about the process. I often hear a lot about this when I talk to people about it being really long and it taking years, but actually it takes 6 months and it's broken down into 2 stages. So stage 1 takes 2 months, and that's the adopter-led checks. People who are going into adoption, they have to go on a 4-day preparation course. That's when all the statutory checks and references are taken, and they have to engage in voluntary work with children. So if people want to, they can take a break between up to 6 months break between stage 1 and 2. Otherwise, they go straight into stage 2, which takes 4 months. And this bit is more led by the agency. And that's where you have all the assessment and training. So you have the home study, and your social worker will write a a prospective adopters report, which is called a PAR. You go on to moving on to placement course. There's ongoing volunteering, learning and support, and then you go to panel. And then once you go to panel, then you get approved, and then the panel decide like how many children you can adopt and the ages of them. So that really is the process in a nutshell. It actually takes 6 months. Another thing I hear about is that you don't get any support. Once the children are placed, you're kind of the local authority or whoever wash their hands of you, and people can run into trouble because it can be tricky. But at PAT, we are proud to say that we support our parents for life. You're always a PAT parent, and at any time you can come back and get help from us. So we have a lot of services. We have the family fun days. I have to say they're the favourite part of my job. I organise them, and we have 2 a year. And I think we had about 157 children and families. We went to like a farm. It was just so wonderful to see all of their children with their parents. That's the best bit of my job. And to hear the children saying, "Mummy," and just getting cuddles and thinking, if those people hadn't come forward for whatever their reason was and put themselves through the process, it's rigorous because it has to be, to then have those children placed in a home where they can thrive. It's just wonderful. So we organise fun days for our families. We have adoption support activities. We offer ongoing training. We have an educational specialist. We have a strengthening families team. We have an adoptee voices support program. We have Catch, which is like an online hub where there's lots of webinars and all sorts of things that you can log into to support you. And we have our adopter champions, and they're a team of adopters who can advise and support throughout your journey. So we really do care for our families. We don't just, you're a PAT family for life, and at any time you can come in. And I know you talked, somebody mentioned earlier about the adoption the breakdowns of placements, but at PAT, the idea would be that you come back to us as soon as possible. We can put the support in to support the child in that family, and that's kind of like the very last thing we would want to happen. So, we have lots of early intervention there to work with our families for life. Okay, and we have, here's a quote from one of our adopters. So Hope and her husband Nigel, they adopted 2 sisters when they were 2.5 and 16 months old. And she said, "I'm Black and I grew up in this country. But when I went to school, I was one of only 4 Black children. I vividly remember feeling that there was no one else here who looks like me, which is not nice, especially when you're 11 or 12 and you don't want to be different from your friends." And she went on to say that my parents are really proud of who they are and where they come from, and they raised us in a way that made identity important. So very quickly, I learned to be proud of who I was. I just think that in their lives, my girls will have 101 extra things to deal with because they're adopted. So if issues of identity can be minimized, then that can only be a positive thing. For me, I'm absolutely determined to do that, to do what I can to make my girls proud of who they are. And I know that I can help them with that. And she's lovely. She's a real advocate for us. And yeah, I was speaking to her just the other day. The girls are thriving, and then secondary school now is just wonderful. Okay, so if you want to find out more, we have online information events, and they're twice a month on the Zoom platform. They last for 2 hours, where you'll hear from an adoption social work manager, and they talk through the process, and you can speak to an adopter and then ask any questions. So they're the next ones, and those dates are all online. And there's the inquiries team, but also I'm sure if you email events@patcharity.org, you'll get through to me. So if you wanted to have a talk or a presentation, then we'd be happy to do that as well. Thank you.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Grace. That's great. And all your information and contact details are there. So if I was you, I'd be expecting some calls very soon and some emails as well. You have covered quite a lot there. There was a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, but you've covered them very nicely in terms of who can adopt and how long does the adoption process last. But just wanted to ask, is there any cost involved? Because sometimes people ask about that. Do they have to pay to adopt in any way, shape or form?
Yeah, that's another question people often ask, because in different countries there is a cost to the process, but there is no cost to it. The only thing at the moment is that you have to have a medical, which you need to go to your doctor, and it's up to your doctor what they charge for that. I think it's somewhere in the region of £150 to £175. So apart from the whole thing, there is actually no cost. So, when I'm out and about, I talk to people from different countries, they're surprised because they think that there's a cost involved, but there isn't.
Okay, and I think that's worth knowing as well. It's just all these bits
Mhm.
and pieces and this extra information that encourages people to come forward. So that's
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you very much, Grace.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And we're going to pass over now to Adore, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about fostering and some of her work that she's doing.
Yes, thank you. So in my work, I found that children between the ages of 3 and 7, they are often the most confused. When they come into care, they're old enough to feel the disruption deeply, but they're still too young to fully understand what's happened to them, why they can't live at home. I've walked alongside many children at this stage, and the questions are heartbreaking. They say, "Where's mummy? Where's daddy? When am I going home? Did I do something wrong?" And they often blame themselves. So out of that, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So out of that, I've written a set of books which grew from a desire to give these children something soft and safe to hold on to when their life feels overwhelmed. Because stories are a gentle bridge between feelings and understanding. The children don't understand the legal processes or safeguarding concerns. They just know something's different. They at this age, between the ages of 3 and 7, their entire world narrows to questions about safety, love, and belonging, not just case plans or court decisions. Could we have the next slide? So the emotional impact on children at this age, it's huge. They don't understand the adult reasons. They just feel the loss, the confusion, the sudden change. Some even wonder, as I've said earlier, that they've done something wrong. This slide here shows one of the books that I've written called The Honey Pot Home. And that book, it's a therapeutic book, and it's a gentle way to help the young children to understand what foster care is. And more importantly, it's also a great tool for foster carers, social workers, adoptive parents, birth families, teachers, or anyone at all that's supporting children to communicate with the children, to help them to understand what's happening in their lives. The characters in the book, Mr. and Mrs. Honeypot, they symbolize the steady nurturing spaces that children need while the big decisions are being made. The book explains in child-friendly language what social workers and guardians and judges are, and it explains the reasons why they may be in foster care and so forth. So may I see the next slide? So when a child asks the same question repeatedly, it isn't the child being defiant, it's just a search for their safety. So every time that, as a foster carer, you respond with a calm reassurance to the child that you are safe, this isn't your fault, you're actually reinforcing their sense of stability and rebuilding trust that has been shaken. Foster carers, they often underestimate it, but their consistent presence is one of the most powerful therapeutic tools that a child can experience. And on the next slide, this is just an image of the 3 books that I've written. The Always a Goal, that book is especially for boys, and it explores what it feels like when life is changing, but love still holds on to them. The second book at the top, Forever Means Always, is for girls, and it reassures the girls that love can stay constant even when routines and surroundings shift. And the Honeypot Home, we've discussed that earlier, but that is explaining foster care and warmth and belonging, hope. So children aren't left feeling afraid or alone. Story time with these books becomes a bridge between the child's feeling and your comfort. It gives them language safety and understanding. And the next slide. I would like to take this opportunity to say a heartfelt thank you to every foster carer. Your role is truly invaluable. As we've discussed earlier, that the current statistics, about 200 adoptions are breaking down every year, and children are returned to care. I'll repeat, we are at a crisis level, especially for Black social workers. So I'm hoping that at the end of this program that we would have sparked more of an interest in the benefits of being a foster carer for these children. We need commitment, we need patience, we need presence among children's lives in ways that cannot be measured. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dee. And it's good to see that as well as working in this area, you've not just working there, you've actually done something practical about it, and really important in terms of writing these books, and something that foster carers can hold on to. And it sounds like adopters as well can hold on to. Be quite interested in having a look to see what you've written there. And it's really helpful for our children that you've taken it that one step further. So well done to you, and I commend you for that as well. And as you say, and I'd repeat for both yourself and Grace, and what you said in terms of needing people to come forward and the passion that you have for the children that you work for, and that it's important, I think, that people know that there is support out there, so, and that they're not just left to it. So what forms of support are you actually seeing at the moment, and what do you think is really helping people in terms of making a significant impact when they get that support? Any particular types of support you've observed that help?
Okay, so there are several important layers of support available to foster families. Every child has their own local authority social worker whose role is to focus on the child's well-being and their care plans, their education, their health, their emotional development, and their connection with their birth family. That all forms part of the care plan. Alongside that, foster carers have their own supervising social workers, and that role is intentionally different. They exist to support the carers. They make sure that the carers feel equipped and trained and emotionally supported, and they have someone that they can contact when things become challenging or overwhelming. So there are two types of fostering arrangements. There's the local authority foster carers that work for the local authorities, or there's the IFA, which is the independent fostering agencies. And so those supports, regardless of if you're a foster carer for an IFA or the local authority, those supports remain. You'll always have a supervising social worker. And the child will always have their own social worker as well. It's my understanding that the IFAs may have more flexibility and capacity to offer additional training, more frequent check-ins, and a bit of that extra wraparound care that carers really value. Regardless of whether a family is with a local authority or an agency, the support that makes the biggest impact is the kind that is consistent and relational and dependable, of course. I believe that foster carers, what I've heard my foster carers say to me is that they need to know that they're not standing alone in hard moments. They need to know that they're surrounded with support. So within our church community, I think that support becomes even deeper. So our church family, or what I will call our church village, it becomes an extended network of encouragement, that practical help and prayer. Prayer is our resilience. We talk a lot, we've spoken a lot tonight about the emotional and spiritual strength that comes through prayer. And because there's something that's profoundly grounding about knowing that your community is lifting you up in prayer. For many of us, prayer is where we find our resilience. It's a reminder that we're not carrying this work on our own strength. And I think we mentioned earlier that it's important for foster carers to feel comfortable to reach out to churches and for churches to recognize how special they are and how special these children are, and how, and to make provision for that, just the same way that provision is made for children where they get in care who get priority treatment in schools and other organizations.
That is very interesting thought, actually, Dee. Children being seen as a priority as opposed to being troublesome or disruptive and so on. But yeah, I like that thought. Yeah, and just going on as well. Where do you see the most significant unmet needs for children within the care system?
Okay. I believe that one of the greatest unmet needs is long-term therapeutic support. Many children, they've lived through trauma, adverse childhood experiences, uncertainty, loss. They need more than just short bursts of intervention. They need a steady, accessible support. And they need adults who will stay committed to their healing over time. We're also seeing, I think it was tonight, our discussion, for me, it's a sobering reminder that many families simply aren't receiving the support early enough or consistently enough to help them sustain the placements that are breaking down, especially the adoptive placements. What I've seen is that if a child is fostered, they get more support. But once a child is adopted, that it tends, at least from the local authority, there tends to be a gap in the support that's offered. So I don't want to say that's the reason why placements are breaking down, but I think it's something that we could probably consider and think about. I think another major unmet need is capacity. We are stretched. Children and carers are waiting too long for the help that they need, and that delay can add pressure to already fragile situations. And this is where, again, I'll go back to our village, our church village. This is where community becomes essential. because in our faith community, we see how powerful it is when families are surrounded with prayer, encouragement, meals, childcare help, and simply knowing that someone is there. And I've mentioned it again, but I will repeat what I've said, because I really do believe that this is very important, that I think that prayer becomes not just a ritual, but it's a source of strength and resilience. It's a reminder that carers and children, they don't have to walk through the challenges alone.
Thank you, dear. And I think, speaking as an adopter, it can be very lonely. So I would think it'd be the same for carers as well. And you do need to know that people have thought about you and your child or children. It's quite essential. And prayer, obviously, is what keeps you going in the day to day. So I entirely agree with that. So thank you. I just wondered if we could have some wider discussion now with all of us. And I don't know if anybody's got any comments to make on anything that Dee presented or said before we kind of move on.
I think the support is essential, as you've said. I mean, you've obviously got lived experience of being an adoptive mum, but when I speak to our parents, they say that they go on the courses before, and they quite often meet people there, and they remain friends with them. And when we have the family fun days, it's really important for the parents to be together and children to see that there are other people, there are other children who are in adoptive families just like them. And probably that's the first time they're ever completely surrounded with children who are living in similar circumstances. And there's a lot of value in peer support. And we've recently started like a support group for our Black and mixed heritage adopters, and that's really good. So they've got a space where just once a month, everybody's at different stages in their journey, they can just connect and, is this normal? Is it not? My child's doing something. It's just nice to have somebody who's been on the same journey to just encourage and support each other. So that's really, really valuable, isn't it?
It's quite essential, I think. Yeah. Those are things, and those are things, supports that are out there in the community. And just thinking about our village again, our village obviously is professionals who we have here tonight. Like I've said, my neighbour, but also I'm going to come back to the church again because I feel to do that. And if there's any specific things, are there any specific things, Shez, I'm going to ask you, that your church has done, or I don't mean your local church, I mean your church world, so to speak, has done for you that's helped you think, yeah, I'm a carer and I'm valued, my children are valued?
I think that would be the support group that I initially had around me when I decided to become a foster carer. And it was some of my local brothers and sisters. And they were very, very, very supportive. And if ever I felt isolated or down, one of the brothers would say, well, do you want me to come in and do this? Or do you want me to take them football? Or do you want me to put them in a photography course? Or some of the sisters would say, well, if there's a church trip to Brighton or to Bognor Regis, shall we take them? So I felt supported by my church in that regard, but that wasn't necessarily by the church as an umbrella. That was more like individuals who I had placed or surrounded myself from my local community church that would be there as a support for me. And as you mentioned, prayer is very important, as was said. And I also want to say this. We sing songs like If I Can Help Somebody on My Way Home. We sing songs like Suffer the Little Children to Come Unto Me. We sing songs like Leave Not One Behind. But when it comes on to practical application, I love what is being presented here today, because the church community needs to be aware that there is so much more we can do than singing songs. But the practical side of being a village, which is outside of Sunday, it's coming in to the real world and saying, can we take in a child? Even if we can't adopt them as a church, are there families in the church that can take in a child and encourage them and support them practically and not just acknowledge, well, these things exist outside of the church, but it's not really our job to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think that's the point we really want to drive home tonight. At the end of the day, we do want people to come forward. That we're working in various parts of this as parents and as professionals when we want people to want that care and that passion for children as well, and to take it, as you say, take it out of the songbook or the chorus and bring it into real life. Something else that's helped me, just to add this before we kind of go on a little bit more, has really been when my son was dedicated, when we had our church dedication, I decided there were some young men, two young men in the church who were really taking a liking to him, to this little 3.5-year-old, and they really took him on and took him to children's church and just took him on really just to take him off me when I went to church. And that really helped me, because sometimes I just needed him not to be with me on Sunday when I went to church, if I'm honest. And I made those two young men what I called honorary brothers. So they're like his kind of brothers, adopted brothers, so to speak. So they kind of look out for him. And they're a lot older now. One's 18 and one is 21. And they still ask how he is, to get text down them, but they do things with him. And some others have kind of joined them. So they'll like take him and cook with him or bake with him or take him somewhere. And those type of people are quite important, because I haven't got a son. I was thinking about your son's shares and the importance of having that young person in the home. And I haven't got that, but it's kind of like I've got something outside of the home that's part of the community. So those supports have been practical, and that's part of my village as well. And I just want to put that out there, because I don't know whether they're listening or not tonight, but at the end of the day, I really appreciate the fact they have done that as young people. Really quite special to me. So if we can move on now, and shares, I don't know if you've got any comments now. Are there some comments have come through? Have you got any that you'd like to share or able to share with us from people on YouTube and so on?
I can't actually see the comments.
You can't see them. I might have to read them then, because they've come through. Some of them have come through to me, so I'll read them. No problem. Okay. Right, so we had somebody from Quebec who's watching and enjoying tonight. Haven't got the name, but it's a lady from Quebec. And we've got Kathleen, who's saying when children are removed from their own family, those children are still loved. They still love their families, but they need people who are loving and who are caring towards them. That was on Zoom. We have another comment on YouTube. And that's hi, Joy and panel. It's Angie from Florida. So people from all over the place watching. Very good to hear that. Very interesting discussion. Thank you all for sharing. And then we have another Zoom comment, which is asking about these books, whether you can buy them directly online or through Amazon. And that's Pauline. So I'm sure we can link that up. She's given her information. And we'll link her up and see if she can get a book. So all very positive comments. So thank you all for your comments, and as with just a selection, and that was shared with you. But thank you for watching and actually putting some comments in and making the effort to do that. So that's really appreciated as well. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a takeaway now, because we're kind of winding up now, really. And I think it's been a really informative discussion for me anyway. I never think I know everything, because every time I meet people who are fostering or who are working adoption and fostering, I find out something else I hadn't thought of. I find out something that they're doing or they've experienced that. I think, oh, I quite like that, that idea. So it's always worth having the discussion. I'm really grateful for that discussion tonight. So I'm going to ask you all in turn if you could just sum up really what you'd like people to take away from you tonight. And I'm going to start with Grace. What would you like people to take away tonight?
I just think adoption and fostering is such a wonderful thing, and I do admire anybody who goes into it. And it's not for everybody, and if it's not for you, that's fine. But as you said, what we can do is pray, and it's really important that we pray for people who are going through the process and who need our help and support. So I think that's the main thing, that it's not for everybody. But those of you who do it, I admire you. You're doing an amazing job, and you are making a difference. And as Christians, we know that adoption is the heart of our Father. And had he not have adopted us into his family, we wouldn't be sitting here today. So we know but it's something that is very close to the Father's heart. So it's something that if we can't actually do ourselves, then we should be supporting and praying for those people and for those children, because the word says that we should direct children onto the right path. When they're older, they won't leave it. And yeah, with his grace and his strength, we can direct them onto the right path, even though we're not doing it ourselves. But we can pray for people who are going through the process. So yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. And Dee, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Take away.
So yes, thank you. Yeah. So to me, as the proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child, and I say that because the village in our church community, the takeaway for me is that the village in the church community means moving beyond good intentions, and it means becoming a consistent, dependable presence in the lives of foster carers, adopters, and children. It's the idea that no family should ever have to carry everything alone. I mentioned earlier that I really do admire foster carers, adopters, well, especially foster carers, because it's a 24-hour job, extremely hard. And in practice, I think that from what I take away tonight is that prayer, I'd like to stress how important prayer is, encouragement, practical help, and just showing up to help in any way that we can in a village. It's a phone call, just a simple phone call, just to see. And I think you mentioned this, Joy, about isolation. It can be a very isolated job, because if you're working 24 hours a day, it's very hard to get time to socialize, and unless you've got respite care and so forth. It could be offering a lift, it could be mentoring a child, it could be babysitting, or just simply, as I said, checking in. And I think that the village means wrapping around families with love, stability, community, creating an environment where you feel supported. And I would also like to, as my takeaway, I'd also like to stress that if there's anyone out there that's even had a thought about being a foster carer, I would urge you to have a conversation. It just a simple conversation. You could call your local authority. You can call an IFA. I'm happy to give my details to receive phone calls to discuss it further, just to, as a form of encouragement. But that's my takeaway and giveaway.
Okay, thank you very much, Dee. And lastly, Shez?
My takeaway would be to all those listening today, or as this is live, it will be recorded forever, I hope, is that children need hope. We all need hope in this world. And without hope, I think we would just feel unloved, unwanted, unnecessary. Death might be a better option, because without hope. And I think as Christians and the village mentality, even as we want to have the hope of Christ and the hope of a better life for us, if you can, give hope to a child. Children need help. The second H. We all need help on our journey. How much more children who have come from war-torn countries, children who find themselves in the fostering or adoption system, not because of anything they have done, not because of anything in their characteristics, but just because of interactions with adults and something that has happened with the adults why they have ended up in the system. So if we can help them, help them. And the third H I had was children need homes. And if you've been blessed with a home, a council home, a temporary home, your own home, and if you have a spare room, think of what would I like someone to do for mine if I weren't here to do for them. And with that kind of mentality, if you can, give them a home. And the last H I have is children need healing. And how much more or where better should they be placed for healing than in the house and homes and hearts of people who profess to be Christians? And we acknowledge the need for Christ to heal us daily. Let's help heal somebody else's child who needs this. That's my takeaway.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies. Really, some really great nuggets there for people to chew on there. So thank you all. Bless you all. And we're going to go over to our announcements now. Thank you. Okay. As we all know, there's been a disaster hurricane, which we'll all know about in the Caribbean. And, you know, a lot of us may have family members that have been impacted in some way, shape or form. But whether we have or not, you know, it's been devastating for people that live in the Caribbean, in those particular countries. And we've had a focus from Rafa in particular on Jamaica and rebuilding. And we're just going to push really on that one tonight because it's a hurricane disaster relief. And as you know, RAFA have been doing a lot of work around this and really encouraging now on rebuilding, actual practical rebuilding. So the things that they're focusing on are things like tarpaulin, lights, building supplies, tools, etc. Things like generators and things of that nature. Of some of that's been donated. And we need some money, obviously, to continue going in. And I know when it initially happened, a lot of us may have given money initially or done barrels or added clothing and so on and so forth. But we need this to be an ongoing appeal. We need to be ongoing response as well because people are in need. And they need homes be rebuilt. The weather will change, rains will come and so on, and cooler weather, and they need somewhere safe and secure to be living. So we want those roofs back on, we want those walls built back in. So anything like that, we're just encouraging you, if you could give. And the details are all there for you to give. So hopefully people will respond to that and bless you as you do so. And the second announcement we have here is about the book launch. And as you've already heard Dee explaining this very ably and telling us why she's written this book and what it's about. So if you're interested, and we know somebody from abroad already is interested, the information is there. It is available at Amazon. I think that was one of the questions that was asked. But obviously Dee can give you more information about that. And I'm sure that we'll be getting people interested in that and who want to purchase that for themselves to help themselves in the future with their children. Thank you. Okay, so we've come to the end of our session tonight. For me, it's been very informative, very thought-provoking in terms of my own experience, and even just sharing my own experience has made me think about how far I've come on this journey, really, from a 3.5-year-old to a 14-year-old, and everything that's happened in between. And if you really want to know all the in between, you'd have to talk to me personally to hear it all. But I'm still in one piece. I'm happy. There are days when it's still difficult, but at the end of the day, love is one component, and a lot of love has been given out. But there's also obviously the care and the consistency, which I've everybody talking about tonight. Being consistent and being there for our children is really, really important. So we're going to be winding up now, and I'd like to give a vote of thanks really to everybody that's been involved this evening. So first of all, I'd like to thank Grace Gomez from PACT, Parents of Children Together, Adore Young, who's a senior practitioner fostering, who's explained her role to us. And they've talked about, both of them have talked about the support they can give and the help, and their information, their contact details are there. So thank you both. And also I'd like to thank Shez Christopher, foster carer and many other things, and for sharing personal journey and experiences, and basically just sharing how the village appears in her life. as a foster carer. So really appreciate that. And also, I would not forget Rachel McCoy, who's behind the scenes and who's put everything together tonight and really been helpful and encouraging and encouraged us that we could do this and that we could present this. And it's worked out very well with her help. So thank you, Rachel. So I'm just going. The only thing to say really now is good night and God bless you. And I really hope that people will get in touch, that they'll use the information on the slides to get in touch with Grace or Dee, and that you'll really take your journey for adoption or fostering forward. I'm happy to speak to people who are interested, who might know me or on Facebook and so on. You may want to contact me. I'm quite happy and open to talking about how I might be able to help you or what might be helpful for you. I wish you all well and have a good night's rest. And if you're watching on the replay, I hope you'll really get something from this also. God bless you all.